Alright, so this will just be a quick tutorial on calibrating the TPS sensor. I actually cracked mine a little bit, so now I'm getting a code 7 for the throttle positioning sensor. This video will cover how to remove the TPS sensor from the throttle body, installing a new one, and setting the calibration. Okay, so go ahead and remove the air intake, any vacuum lines going to the throttle body, as well as the plug off the TPS sensor and the throttle cable. There are 2 bolts at the top and 2 at the bottom. Undo those and remove the throttle body from the plenum. Alright, so I've gone ahead and placed the throttle body into the vise safely with a piece of wood and a plate of metal at each end. And what I'm going to go ahead and do is cut a slit into this tamper-proof screw that they use to install these, and that'll allow us to put a flathead screwdriver in it in order to take it off the throttle body. Okay, so I'm going to start off with a small saw, something with a tiny blade, just to kind of get this started. I actually picked this one up at Harbor Freight for a couple bucks. I originally bought it when I had a race stuck in my rear knuckle, the outer sleeve of a bushing, and made it really easy to remove, cutting a small slit in it with this. And then once I get this one started, I will move on to a bigger saw. Alright, so it may be hard to get a large enough flathead in there to get a good enough torque to back these out, so I'm going to go ahead and switch over to a hacksaw and widen it up just a little bit. You want to definitely make sure you're going down far enough. You want to make sure there's enough surface area to get some good torque on. Alright, so now I'm ready to go ahead and try to insert a flathead into it, putting some good force down on it and break it loose. Back both of these out. I'm going to go ahead and save these. I'm not going to put new screws in. These will work just fine for installing the new TPS sensor. So here I have one I removed off an H23A1 throttle body I had laying around. It'll work just fine. Okay, so you'll notice that there's basically a little key in here that it fits into, a lever for the throttle plate. You are going to want to make sure the little notch on the back of the TPS sensor is sitting inside the slot on the throttle body. Also, I could not find an aftermarket gasket for these, so you're going to either have to make one or make sure, if you're purchasing a TPS sensor, to make sure it does include the gasket. Now just install the gasket over the TPS sensor. Line up the peg on the back with the slot on the throttle body. Once it's in there, turn it till the screw holes line back up and install the 2 screws. Do not tighten them all the way. We'll do that once we get it calibrated. Okay, so I've got the TPS sensor plugged back in. I've exposed the wires on the plug. The yellow wire is constant 5 volts, and we're going to be measuring the red wire. So just peel back a little bit of wire on it, get an alligator clip on there, and we're going to be looking for a measurement of 0.45 volts with the throttle plate fully closed. Alright, and now we're ready to go ahead and calibrate our TPS sensor. We'll just make contact with the other end of the alligator clip to the positive terminal. And we're looking for a reading of 0.45, so this is why we left the screws a little loose. We'll just begin to adjust the sensor until it gets into the range of 0.45. Then we're just going to very carefully, without knocking the TPS sensor, tighten down this screw just a little bit, and we'll go back and check it again to make sure we're still set to 0.45. Now it's fallen out of range just a little bit, so I'm just going to give it some taps to get it right back on 0.45 and then continue tightening it. Alright, once I have this one side snug and tight, I'm going to go ahead and just confirm I'm still in range, which I am, so I'll flip the throttle body over. Alright, and lastly, we're just going to go ahead and confirm that it stayed in place while we tightened the screws down, and we're still at 0.45. So make contact, and exactly at 0.45. Now I can go ahead and detach the TPS sensor plug, install a new throttle body gasket and the throttle body, tighten down the 4 bolts, and put on the intake, throttle cable, and any vacuum lines that were disconnected. Well, that's it. So if you have any questions or comments, please post them below. Please like and subscribe. I hope this video was helpful, and thanks for watching.